We're running the same compounds at Silverstone that we did in 2011. The option compound will be the soft tyre and the prime compound will be the hard tyre. Last year the tyre delta between prime and option was very large, and we're seeing this year that the new Pirelli compounds have brought that much closer. The hard tyre was not really in the window of the option tyre, and so all the teams preferred to run the option tyre compound, and that's the way. So with that in mind, the teams biased their strategy around option tyres, which led us to preferring 3-stop race. This year I think we might see a reduction in stop laps because there'll be less of a tendency to stay off the prime compound, and we might also see a bit more of mixed strategies as the one tyre is not so deficient. Silverstone can be one of the coldest races that we go to. The low track temperatures have sometimes affected the prime compound because it's traditionally been made to work in perhaps more demanding conditions, typically being hotter circuits. But Silverstone's demanding in that it's very high speed, so it requires the harder compounds. The high corner speeds place high demands on the tyres, meaning we need to run durable compounds. But sometimes that compound hasn't been compatible with the lower temperatures that we run, that we find at Silverstone, and so we've often had a bit of a mixed grid and perhaps even mixed race, as some teams have struggled to warm the tyres up properly and get the peak out of it for qualifying, while others that have not always been the quickest in qualifying have managed to do that because their car tendency suits that tyre. And so it can be quite interesting race in that regard, and we may see that again this year. Obviously weather-wise, Silverstone started life as an airfield circuit, so it's very open to the elements, and the wind can play a big part in multiple aspects of the car, from the aerodynamic downforce, whether you're heading into a corner that's got a headwind or a tailwind, and even to the sensitivity of the car to gusts and just high wind speeds in the middle of the corner, which can cause sudden downforce loss, and it even impacts things like our top speed and then our gear ratio selection. So that, coupled with the chances of rain, it's not an easy one to deal with weather at Silverstone. Last year we had quite a lot of running in the wet because some of the practice sessions were rain affected, and then, as you say, the race was affected by rain shower just prior to the start. All the drivers started on intermediate tyres last year, but it was really kind of a novel circumstance in that really only half the circuit was wet, and that was actually really wet, and the other half of the circuit was pretty much dry. So it was very demanding on the intermediate tyres because they had to deal with both parts, and it was interesting to see that the tyres were durable enough to be able to withstand the dry part of the circuit and last until the crossover point, when the wet part of the circuit was dry enough to switch to the prime or option compound. So I think last year we were pretty happy with the intermediate tyre. In the full wet can be a real challenge on the high speed corners. It lacks perhaps the rear grip that the intermediate tyre has. The balance is not quite so nice, so the drivers find it a real challenge in the wet at Silverstone. The third year running at the new circuit layout, but the second year in the new pit complex, so second year of the new turn one, I guess, sequence. I think generally they all like the layout, and for the teams the new pit complex is nice to work from, so it's good to I think the changes have been well received. Interesting pit layout and entry. You missed the final corner sequence. So the pit loss is below average, around about 20 seconds, but I believe they've made some slight change to the pit entry this year, so they'll be interesting to see, and we may actually have they may reposition the start of the pit limit section, the 100 kph section, just to balance out the pit loss a little bit more. The DRS zone last year was between turns 4 to 6, so I think that's the Wellington straight. It's definitely the best passing opportunity with or without DRS, so I'd imagine that will remain for this year. The reason it's quite a good passing opportunity is because the corner sequence leading up to turn 4 is quite challenging, and a car with an advantage through there can get a bit of a run going down the straight. So it's I think the DRS location is quite good there. It just provides a good balance because it's not an easy circuit to follow close on because of the high-speed corners. So I'd expect the DRS zone to remain there. It's always a challenge choosing the 7th gear ratio because the penalty for shortening your top gear and limiting your qualifying speed is not too penalising in qualifying, but it can become penalising in the race when it comes to passing, because there you've got DRS, but you've also got a full toe and you can use all your curves on that straight. So I think different teams have a different bias towards how they operate. Some teams look to go for more of a race optimum speed and really limit their qualifying speeds, and that's a good strategy if you're running in open air with cars behind you and you're not needing to pass anybody. If you find yourself back in the midfield for whatever reason, maybe a bad qualifying or maybe things not working out strategy wise, then that can be quite limiting. So I think it's something Silverstone's probably not too different than the majority of circuits that we go to, because the high speed corners mean your higher gears are reasonably long anyway, so 7th doesn't get so far away from say 4th, 5th, 6th, and then it comes down to your emphasis on passing really. The high-speed corners are really penalising for an increase in fuel load. So that results in around about 0.4 seconds per 10 kilos around that circuit, which is certainly above average. But the flowing nature of the circuit, in that it's not stop-start with a lot of hairpins and really long straights, means that the fuel consumption is not actually too high. So overall, probably results in a fairly average kind of overall effect, but the teams will be aware that the fuel penalty is more influential there than most circuits we go to.